Hello. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, hi. My name is Brielle. I'm a 24-year-old fantasy writer living in Los Angeles, California. This is episode 1 of the Rough Draft vlogs. I missed the photo booth setup. I won't even lie. The first time I did it, it was purely out of necessity because my camera broke, but this time it is a choice. It is something that I actively wanted to do solely for vibe purposes, and I honestly love that for us. Welcome in. Like I said, this is episode 1 of the Rough Draft vlogs. So this vlog series is going to be documenting my continued process of working on the rough draft of my adult fantasy project, which I've nicknamed Project The Wall. I wanted to keep documenting the drafting process beyond Nano, so that's where this series is being born. If this is the first video of mine that you're watching, I'm working on an adult fantasy book. It's a journey book. It's a bantery sort of romance. It takes place in a sort of fantasy dystopian environment, and it's a lot of fun. So what's been up with the writing? The writing has been dry. It has been the Sahara Desert over here. In the past few weeks, since November ended, I have only written like 1,000 words, and we're like halfway through December at this point, and that is just not how I want things to be going this month. Here's what I think has happened, okay? I think that I have maybe become a little bit too attached to the idea of the perfect writing day, and as a result, I'm not writing. I think I'm waiting to have a day that's really full and available for me to dive into this project with this sort of focus and intensity that I want to, and that day has just not presented itself, and because of that, I have chosen not to write despite the fact that I've really wanted to. The motivation is there. That is so not the issue. It's more so been like, I've never felt like it's the right time to get back into it. And there's never going to be a right time. And I know this. I know this about the many different things that I've pursued. There's never a right time. If you're waiting for the right time, it's never going to happen. So I need to just like rip the bandage off. It's always something, right? It's either like, okay, it's dark out, so I can't film. And I want to start off my writing vlog, so therefore I can't write, which is ridiculous. Or it's like, oh, I would only have a tiny bit of time to write, so I don't want to start the project now. Or, oh shoot, it's the weekend, which is when I normally write, but I have social plans today, so that's down the drain. It's just been one thing after the other. It's a Monday night right now. I'm dying to get back into this project, guys. I miss it so much. I've been writing down more miscellaneous ideas in my notes. I've been missing these characters, and that's how I know that I'm really passionate about this project, because every time I'm away from it for even a few days, I feel this tug back to it, and I've been away for it for more than a few days. I've been away from it well over a week, and I'm terrified that I stay away long enough, it'll be really hard to get back into it and to slide back into the character voice in the world. So if you are also suffering from waiting for the perfect time or the perfect day to get back into your writing project, this is your PSA that there is no perfect time or perfect day, and you should just try to get back into the project, even if it's not your most productive session ever, even if you can't dedicate an entire day to it today. I feel like I was very sleepy this morning, and as a result, I'm now getting my energy in the evening. Kind of odd, but that's what's happening. So I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to dive back in. So my friend Annabelle is actually coming over to do a little like goal setting session together for 2024, but after she leaves, I'm hoping I can just maintain productivity and switch to working on my book. So that's the plan, and we'll see how much we get to write today, but the main goal today is not even like getting a crazy word count. It is quite literally just getting back into the project and getting things rolling again, because I am dying to write, guys. And also, I had set, I think, a 10,000 word goal for the month of December, which should be very achievable, but the fact that I've only written 1,000 words towards it, it's not looking too hot. I wasn't planning to do any writing when I go home for the holidays, but now I'm kind of thinking that I will. I feel like it's a fun little activity that I can do while I'm hanging out in my parents' house, like around them, you know, when they're doing other things. I could easily be sitting in the family room writing. That might actually be a bit of a sweet spot and a bit of an unexpected opportunity to get some words. So welcome into episode 1 of the Rough Draft vlogs. I at least want to try to write a few times this week, and I'm going to challenge myself to try and write during the week. All right, I'll update you guys once we've done a little bit of writing. You guys want to hear a little excerpt? Because I kind of love what I just wrote. Still needs to be polished, of course. Okay, let's do it, shall we? The smell hit me first. It burned my nostrils, intoxicating and familiar. It was salt and fresh fish and ocean air. Teetering on the edge of consciousness, I saw him leaning over the dock's edge, hand skimming the water's surface. The exaggerated reflections of the moonlight on the water, on his radiant skin, were so bright they bled into the rest of the scene, white blotches that leaked and blended with the inky colors of the night sky. I had a splitting headache that seemed bent on cleaving my skull in half. That searing pain sliced my memory down the middle and pulled and tore until only shreds of it remained in my mind's eye. Swimming stars, a warm touch. Then that last bit of warmth was ripped from me too. All I had now was the cold ground below me, the water seeping through my cotton pants, the sounds of people moving about around me, muffled and mockingly lazy, like they didn't think much of having a girl crumpled up on the floor before them. I had enough sense not to open my eyes. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I don't usually play with imagery to this extent. Dare I say flowery language? Hopefully you know what I mean. Like, I tried a little bit harder on this description for sure. But I didn't feel like it held me up or anything, like in terms of drafting. If anything, I felt like it inspired me to want to keep going. I don't know, it feels good to like feel comfortable enough to experiment like this and actually be pleased with the results. I feel like sometimes I don't know how to make things sound pretty, and it's reassuring when something like this happens on the page and I'm like, okay, I kind of did that. I ended up writing about 868 words total during this writing session, which I'm pretty pleased with. And we're going to call it a wrap for the night. Good morning, besties. It is Thursday. I have some banana, cinnamon, everything bagel breakfast going on. We're obviously sitting outside today. My apartment is just such a mess that being in there was stressing me out. So I was like, you know what, let's go outside to film this, have a little bit more of a serene environment. So at the beginning of the week, I was kind of toying with the idea of trying to write every day this week. Like I mentioned to you guys at the beginning of the vlog, I felt like I was waiting for the perfect writing day, and as a result was just not getting back into the project. And I was like, maybe I would benefit from trying to write every day. So I did actually write again on Tuesday. You guys obviously saw I wrote on Monday night. I did also write again Tuesday night. Didn't get that many words. I got a few hundred words. I'll pop the exact word count up on the screen. I'll talk a little bit more about the scene that I'm writing and the unique challenges that it's presenting in a bit. But I did not write yesterday. I kind of wanted to get into sort of my thoughts yesterday because I talked this out with my boyfriend, and I just think it's interesting to analyze why I felt like I couldn't write yesterday. That's not true. I could have written yesterday. I didn't want to write yesterday. So essentially, I had a realization. I got home from work. It was an in-office day, very exhausting. You guys know how it is. And I was like, okay, I should probably sit down to write. I'm trying to maybe write every day this week. Like, I should sit down at my computer and bang this out and then relax. And I just kind of realized that this was the first time that I had viewed writing in that way, of like an obligation and something that I needed to use discipline to do. And I just kind of had the thought of like, why would I do that to myself if I don't have to? Up until this point, I've been able to maintain writing feeling like leisure and feeling like the dessert in my day. And I felt like if I forced myself to write when I was just not really feeling naturally motivated to, I would be turning writing into the spinach of my day instead of the dessert. Does that analogy make sense? Now, I realize this is probably not something that I can maintain forever. This lax, no discipline needed approach to writing, where I'm just kind of writing when I feel like it and not really using a ton of discipline. I know that that can't last forever, especially if I am ultimately aiming to publish books. Not super realistic for me to just have that approach throughout my writing journey. However, at this point where there's no real pressure, I'm taking my time writing this rough draft, I can still maintain that. And if I can, I want to, because there are so many other things in my life that already feel like something I need to use discipline for. I would like to keep writing from feeling that way for as long as I possibly can. I want it to keep feeling like the treat that it has been, and I don't want to force it if I don't have to. So that's how I've been feeling. In these early stages of my writing journey, I want to maintain writing when I want to and not forcing it with discipline. It is actually the morning before work. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I'm working from home today, so it's nice to actually be able to like film this morning. The past few days have been so just work consumed especially now that it gets dark earlier, it's like by the time I got home, it was kind of too late to film and such, which I really don't like. I hate not having access to my daylight hours, but it is what it is. So I want to talk a little bit about the scene that I'm working on right now. But first, I'm going to taste this toast. So the scene I'm writing right now is, I guess I would call it the first dark scene that I've written, maybe ever. Without getting into too much spoilery detail, there is a sort of kidnapping involved. But I will say, writing a kidnapping in fantasy is very different than writing a kidnapping in a contemporary, to me personally, in the same way that writing like a murder in fantasy feels very different than writing it in like a contemporary. It just does not feel as dark, period. Things in a fantasy world do not feel as dark as if you were writing it in a contemporary setting. Does anyone else feel this way? I'm pretty sure this is a near universal opinion, because we'd be writing crazy wars and shit into fantasy books that we would never be able to stomach in a contemporary setting, because it just feels like a different world. Anyway, let me just say, take the word dark with a grain of salt, because really I'm not going there with this book. Like, it's not going to be scarring. I don't even think it'll be like upsetting to read at all. Like, as a reader, I don't do too well with like dark themes and scarring scenes, so none of that in this book. It's for the most part going to be very palatable. The point of me saying this is that this is my first experience kind of trying to write a darker scene. It's also one of the first scenes that I've written that I would say is like pretty action intensive. Like, it's going to require some choreographing, which I always find challenging. I'm sure most people do, when there's just like moving pieces and people are moving around the room and there's going to be like some sort of brawl. So I'm not used to writing any of that. So it's been a challenging scene for me for sure. The beginning, which I wrote on Monday, was coming out very easily. But since then, it's become a little challenging, especially because I'm also introducing new characters, which when I do that always slows me down, because I really have to take some time to be like, okay, who are these people? What do they look like? What's their personality? What's their voice like? Like, I have to ask myself all those questions. Even if they're just like really side characters, I still have to like decide what they look like, you know? So that obviously slows me down. That's not the type of thing that flows out naturally for me most of the time. So I had to take some time to think about that. But it's just interesting trying to find the right balance between having the drama and intensity of the scene without veering into making it too unsettling and too unnecessarily uncomfortable for the reader. So I'm trying to find that perfect balance, because like I said, I'm trying to maintain the tone of this book overall being pretty palatable, pretty light, while also still playing with some of those darker emotions and a little bit darker themes, and still making the person who captured her into a proper villain. It's trying to weave all of that in a way that still feels authentic to me and not like I'm forcing it to be in a different tone than I want the book to be. So that's my current challenge, is trying to work through the scene. I won't lie, I have the urge to skip ahead, but I'm trying to resist, because I do feel like sticking to more of a chronological approach has been working for me up until this point. I feel like it's just easier to build up the character relationship and all of those sorts of factors more gradually and authentically when you're going through the book chronologically when you're drafting. Like, I would have a really hard time skipping ahead to a future scene where the dynamic between our characters would change without writing the in-between, I think. So even though there are some scenes that I am dying to write, obviously it's when the romance, I don't want to say peaks, but you know what I mean, the turning point in the romance, I'm dying to write it, especially because I already have some of the dialogue written in my future lines document and I want to use it so bad. But I'm trying to restrain, because those scenes will be a nice treat when I get to it, but I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to make the arcs as gradual as possible in this first draft. Though, don't get it twisted, I think the character arcs and such and relationship dynamics are going to need a lot of tweaking and revision, because I just don't think they're finessed as well as they need to be, but we'll get there. All right, so something that I want to start up in this vlog series is taking your guys' questions, whether that be about writing, my book, just anything, honestly. The world is your oyster in terms of what you want to ask me, but I already got a question from Kelly, which, hi Kelly, if you're watching this. First of all, I'm absolutely honored that you watch my channel, because you're one of my favorite authors to watch on YouTube. Thank you for being here. But she basically asked, how do you stay motivated to write when it feels like everything in life is trying to keep you from writing? Which I really relate to that, especially in the past week where all I wanted was to write, and I somehow managed to feel like I didn't have the time or ability to do so. So definitely relate to that. Sometimes it can feel like all the other priorities in your life are just fighting for your attention, and it's hard to prioritize writing. When I got to thinking about it, I think the biggest thing that really motivates me to keep coming back to the story and the page is the possibility of having one of those moments in the writing process that just feels like magic. As cheesy as it sounds, I just don't know how else to put it. It's those moments where things click and the puzzle pieces fit together and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, like this moment is everything. Whether that's a little piece of dialogue that just like makes you giddy, which happens to me all the time, or a character surprises you on the page, the story takes a turn that you weren't expecting. It's those real like moments that just surprise you where it feels like almost divine intervention and you're just like, how did this fit together? Like all of a sudden things just fall into place. That to me is like my favorite part of writing. It's the thing that makes me like excited and giddy and just feel like this is the most fun thing in the world. So I think the possibility of those moments and knowing that there's going to be more of them because they do happen somewhat frequently really motivates me to want to keep going. Thinking about the fact that this will, if I keep going, eventually be a finished product that I can read and maybe even like hold in my hands with my name on it, that also motivates me a lot because I've never had that experience before and I just know it would be like the coolest moment. So I think about that moment a lot of like unboxing my book for the first time or even just like printing out the whole draft and getting to read it from a reader perspective. That's so inspiring to me, and that's also why I think this idea has really stuck for me and I've been so excited about this project. Is it is the type of thing that I would want to read, and that really makes me more motivated to finish it because I want to be able to read it. I want to be able to experience it as a story that I wrote and that I came up with this entire new world and these characters that feel so like vibrant to me. That is a huge motivating factor for me as well, wanting to be able to read this thing that I've crafted. If you want to submit a question for the next episode, feel free to leave it in the comments and I will address them in the next episode, and hopefully we can keep this going where it's like any comments you leave on the previous episode I can address in the next one. Now I'm feeling all happy and motivated and I have to go get back to work. Hello besties. It is now Sunday and today is actually the day that I fly home to New Jersey for the holiday season. I've not written since we last talked, so it's been several days at this point, and I am going to be on a plane today, which means that I'm going to be sitting in one place for like 6 hours. Are you guys picking up what I'm putting down? Basically, I have a feeling today's going to be a pretty good writing day. Last time I was on a plane, I actually ended up writing quite a bit, and that was before I even really knew what I was doing with this project. So now I feel like today is going to be good, and I also am feeling really excited to get back to it, which is awesome. Also, this is going to sound so weird and random, but I love the idea of somebody just like looking over my shoulder on the plane and being like, is this girl writing a book? Like there's something about that feels so like romantic and cool. Like I would love to see someone doing that. Whenever I see someone in public like doing something like reading or like writing, working on some sort of little project at a coffee shop, I'm like, I feel like I'm in a movie. I'm witnessing an artist at work. I'm really excited to see my family and spend Christmas over there and New Year's. I'm gonna be there for several weeks, so. Also, if you have made it this far into the video, include the pen emoji in your comments so that I know you made it towards the end. I'll be absolutely honored. Where are we, you're wondering? And we are in my childhood bedroom in New Jersey. I arrived yesterday. The flight was good. I got a ton of words in. Maybe a ton is a bit misleading. I got about 1,500 words. That flight flew by like nothing I've ever seen before. I was just reading. I'm currently reading The Hawthorne Legacy, which is part of the Inheritance Games series. Loving it. And writing. Literally, it made 6 hours feel like 2. I was like shook when I found out we were like about to land. But the writing that I got done was pretty solid, and we're gonna chat about it while I get ready for the day. It's Monday, so I'm getting ready to work from here. I'm working remote this week, obviously, while I'm in New Jersey. I was still working yesterday on that scene that I talked about in the last update, and it was tough. Super tough. Probably the most, or at least one of the most challenging scenes I've written so far in this manuscript. I mean, it's just complicated. There's a lot of moving pieces, and not only was I figuring out what happened in the scene itself, but I had to figure out certain backstories and character dynamics in order to like be able to weave that into what was happening. So it was a little bit complicated, and like I said, it was a bit of a darker scene, a bit of a kidnapping situation. I know I'm giving away some details around the book, but I'm really hoping by the time I actually publish this, if I do publish it, you guys will have forgotten if you decide to read it. I mean, I think I would, you know? So I mentioned that this was sort of a dark scene, and I think I was trying to find the right balance here because like I mentioned in the last update, the goal with this book is not for the tone to be super dark, and I don't want any scenes that are going to be like scarring or super uncomfortable for the reader, obviously, because that's just not my style and wouldn't fit with the tone of the rest of the book, which, you know, is intense and such, but it's intense in the way that like Harry Potter is intense. You know, I want it to still feel digestible. I actually think that when I was writing yesterday, I went too far the other direction and didn't make the scene suspenseful enough because I diffused the tension and the threat way too quickly. Like I made it way too clear, too quick that she wasn't actually really in danger. And I realized after writing the scene that maybe that was not the best. Like I can make the scene more suspenseful and more intense without it being like ridiculously horrifying. So this morning when I woke up at the bright and early hour of 8 o'clock, which is crazy because that's 5 a.m. Los Angeles time, and I honestly could not tell you how or why I woke up at that hour. I just got some very random miscellaneous ideas for the scene. This tends to happen like after having a writing day, the next day or two, ideas just like plop into my head, which is why I like coming back to the page pretty often, because then I end up with pages of notes like this, and some of it is just ideas, but some of it is also straight up dialogue that I can copy and paste into the scene. But I figured out a way to kind of up the stakes a little bit while also keeping the main villain of the scene a little bit more morally gray, if you will. I don't want him to be like malicious and like evil, but by putting her in this situation, he has subjected her to other people's viciousness. And I figured out just the right amount of repercussions or dangers to throw in the scene without it being too much, as well as figured out what the next scene is going to be, which I didn't previously know. So I'm feeling incredibly good about that. And yeah, I mean, trying to find the right balance of the tone of this book and how gory or violent do I want it to get, I guess, is something I'm still trying to figure out. Because yeah, I know a lot of writers love writing the traumatic and dark stuff, but that is just not my style and never has been. All that being said, my camera's about to die, so we're gonna wrap this video up here with blush on my cheeks like this, apparently. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this writing vlog. If you did enjoy it, make sure to give it a like, and if this is your first time on the channel, definitely subscribe because I'm going to keep this series going throughout my process of working on the rough draft. I appreciate you guys, thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time, bye.